On Tuesday, Governor Rotimi Akeredolu of Ondo State joined his colleagues in Osun, Ekiti, Ogun, Oyo, Abia, Bayelsa, Rivers, Benue, Taraba, and Ebonyi states to sign a bill banning the open grazing of cattle and other livestock in his state. In doing so, he swelled the number of states in the country that now have legislation in place banning open grazing, which has been blamed for numerous deadly clashes between farmers and nomadic herdsmen and cattle rustling in recent years. Akeredolu's move was also in line with the decision reached by governors of the 17 southern states to enact laws against open grazing in their states on or before September 1st, 2021. Irrespective of their resolve to encourage modern ranching methods for livestock farming, President Muhammadu Buhari has remained resolute about re-establishing old grazing routes in 25 states in the country. Well, with no end in sight, on which side will throw in the towel first?
The forum set a timeline of Wednesday, the 1st of September 2021 for the promulgation of the anti-grazing law in all its member states.
That deadline has now expired. To date, 8 southern states have a law in place. They are Oyo, Ekiti, Ondo, Bayelsa, Rivers, Abia, Ebonyi, and Imo states. The bills have been passed by the legislature in Ogun and Osun states and are awaiting the assent of the governors. The legislative process is ongoing in Lagos, Delta, Enugu, and Akwa Ibom states. For now, there is no ban also in Anambra, Edo, and Cross River states. In the north, Benue and Taraba states have also passed the anti-open grazing laws. In spite of this, President Muhammadu Buhari has approved the recommendations of a committee to review with dispatch 368 grazing sites across 25 states in the country and to determine the levels of encroachment. Another committee is to make recommendations for gazetting of ungazetted grazing reserves and create a database of national cattle herders and ensure that grazing reserves are well communicated to all stakeholders. But relying on the Land Use Act, the governors are insisting that management of land in their states falls squarely on them.
I've now been joined by Baba Ngalzerma, National Secretary of the Miyetti Allah Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria, and Charles Aniagwu, Delta State Commissioner for Information. Ngalzerma will be explaining why his association continues to reject the adoption of modern ranching techniques, while Aniagwu will be briefing us on why open grazing and the bloody clashes between farmers and herders pose a threat to food security in the country. Good morning, gentlemen, and welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Good morning. Well, Baba, let's start with you. At a point, we heard that Miyetti Allah, Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria, did not have any objection to the position of the southern governors banning open grazing in the southern part of the country. But then a few days ago, with the deadline of September 1 approaching for the signing of the various bills into law across the southern states, Miyetti Allah was quoted as saying Miyetti Allah does not recognize the open grazing law in the southern states. And then in some states, Miyetti Allah was insisting that it should be allowed to make inputs into the law, particularly in some of the southeastern states where the proposed law was being debated. What exactly is the position of Miyetti Allah at this moment? And also there's another group called, Gan Allah Development Association. We may start from that point.
To start with, I have a very important clarification to make because people are mostly confused, more especially the media, and confused in addressing Miyetti Allah. Let it be very clear that we have two Miyetti Allahs. There is the Miyetti Allah Cattle Breeder Association of Nigeria, which is the one that I lead as its national secretary, and the Miyetti Allah Cattle Hore an entirely different group duly registered by CSC. So there are two Mieti Allah. So most of the times when there is a comment, usually the media accredited most of these comments to our group, because our group is the one that has a larger outlook. It has branches in all the 36 states, including FCT, and in most of the local governments across the country. And ours is a democratic one. We came through an election, and most of the state branches also came through an election. But the other group also exists. So most of the times when the media is reporting, they only quote Mieti Allah. So whenever Mieti Allah is quoted, people think whatever statement, whether good or bad, is being associated to our group because it is the popular one that has His Eminence the Sultan of Sokoto as the Chairman Board of Trustees and some respected Northern traditional rulers as our Board of Trustees members. So ours is a responsible one. Ours is never a violent one. And we always get our statements whenever we make one. So let the media begin to differentiate between the two Mieti Allahs. And I will call on the media to, whenever it is reporting, let it quote the entire name, whether it is Mieti Allah Cattle Breeder Association, that we use the abbreviation as MAGBAN, or the Mieti Allah Cattle Hore. So these two are two different registered groups. But because the media and most of the media followers are confused, whatever it is done is mostly associated to Mieti Allah. So when you see just Mieti Allah mentioned, what comes to mind is cattle breeders, because it is the popular one that has branches across the country. So this is a clarification that we have to make. Coming to the open grazing law. See, we as civilized people, we know that the responsibility of making law lays at the State House of Assemblies. Once a law is made by the State House of Assembly and accented by the governor, that becomes a law, whether good or bad, whether we like it or not. But then, there are processes that can be followed in making laws. Those processes are get all the stakeholders through public hearing, hear them, know how the law is going to affect them, and know how the law is going to solve their problems. But has this been done in making the anti-open grazing law? It has never been done. In most of the states, none of our members is invited to come to the public hearing and make inputs to the law. And this law is done to affect us 100%, to affect our members 100%. We are part of the critical stakeholder that are supposed to be invited to air their views and protect their positions and that of the government of the state where they exist. Mind you, in all those states that we mentioned, Ondo and most of the southwestern and southeastern states, you have indigenous pastoralists whose fathers were born and brought up in those states. And those who are living today are also born and brought up there. So if you ask them to go, they wouldn't know where to go, because they know these states as their own states, because apart from those areas, they don't know anywhere to go. Go to Ogun, go to Oyo, go to the forest, locate them. The only language they understand is maybe Fulani and Yoruba. Some don't even understand Hausa, for your information. Coming to the Igbo side, if you go to places like Aniagwu and most of the Igbo areas, you find them, they only understand their traditional language, which is the Fulfulde, and the Igbo language. They don't even understand Hausa, and they only understand broken English. So these are indigenous pastoralists who were born and brought up there, whose interests and flights are supposed to be protected by the law. But where you make a law without getting them to come and put in their input, this law becomes lopsided. And what is the purpose of making the law after all? Wherever in the world a law is made, a law is supposed to bring harmony and understanding in a particular society. Where you have a law that does not bring harmony and understanding among the groups in a particular area. That law is not going to, has not been done in a way that it will succeed the purpose for which it is being promulgated. So this has been our argument always. But hold on, we are never opposed to any form of settlement of the pastoralists. In this area, in this era of civilization, and with considering the outburst in population is increasing and it will continue to increase compared to the increase in the population of the animals at the same time, and a land that doesn't increase 1 inch. So this calls for an effective planning. So we are never opposed to any form of settlement, but that settlement must come as a process. The system of animal husbandry that the pastoralists are practicing is the only thing that they know. They don't know anything apart from it because there was no attempt by all the succeeding administration to try to transform to modernize their system. So they are only doing what they only know.
We have 2 guests, and I need to hear from Mr. Aniagwu. I'd like you to comment on what Mr. Ngalzerma said, because I'm aware that Delta State held the public hearing for their anti-open grazing law on July 26th. Were all stakeholders invited or not? And what is the status of your anti-open grazing law, as well as what you have to say in response to his comments?
Well, let me first of all start by letting you know that I didn't hear a word or anything from Baba Ngalzerma at all, but I can imagine his views. Possibly he's holding on to certain primordial values that, yes, these are our parents, our fathers have had cause to rear cattle, and as such, they believe that they needed to stay along that particular line. Biblical account has it that Adam and Eve were created, and at the time they were created, the only thing you had is that they covered their nudity with leaves, because of course there were no textile industries or any factory. But as society grew and there was modernization, it became clear that we needed to now have garments produced by these textile industries for the purpose of individuals having to clothe themselves. Then if you also go back to the issue of cattle rearing, there were no vehicles in primordial times for them to also convey these cattle from one point to the other. But as we made progress, they started using vehicles. So if they want to stay with the tradition and the old style of animal husbandry, then let them not even use vehicles to transport the cattle. But that is just by the way. We didn't even need to look at the crisis created by the clash between herders and farmers for us to begin to look at what obtains in other parts of the world. Ranching does a lot in improving the economy of any nation, not even in that of certain states. It helps to create jobs. It helps to make it to be more organized. Government is able to monitor the progress in that sector. And that is why, like for instance, the law we are putting in place in Delta is not only for the purpose of just banning a grazing of cattle in open areas, but we're also going ahead to regulate the breeding, the rearing, as well as the marketing. In which case, if we are going to create any place where individuals could establish their ranch, we are able to put it in such a way that there's some element of co-location of facilities, such that you could have a whole number of ranches owned by different persons, and that they can take advantage of facilities that will be within that vicinity, i.e. provision of water that the livestock will, of course, be needing, and a whole lot of other things in terms of preservation, in terms of even animal processing. A situation where you have any corner becoming a butcher, or what you may call abattoir, and at the end of the day, it becomes a place where individuals are even, where they are spreading one bacteria or the other. It's not healthy for anybody. We are pleading with our brothers who are into the business of this animal husbandry, particularly the herders, whether they are Fulani or whatever tribe they are of, to understand that the society is moving. And the best thing that we can do is to also move along the line of society. It is said that custom without reason is ancient error. And so having to subject these cattle to some form of unwarranted exercise. It's not healthy because these cattle are shedding weight. They are not able to provide us the enough protein that we desire because they have been subjected to trekking thousands of kilometers, which they did not subscribe to. Maybe because they do not have the ability to complain. And so let individuals take away the politics of it. Let them take away the primordial sentiments. But of course, I do not blame these individuals more than I would blame the president. The president needs to provide leadership because I assume that he should be able to understand. And that those who also advise the president have a clearer picture of what is obtainable in advanced society. If you go to the state of Texas in the United States, the number of cattle that they have in Texas alone is far in excess of what we have in the entire Nigerian nation. Yet, you don't see them roaming on the streets, causing havoc. The last time I appeared on your program, I made it very, very clear that the crop is the source of livelihood of the farmer, the crop farmer. Even as the cattle is also the source of livelihood of the header. Now, how do you strike a balance if the source of livelihood of the header now progresses to a level where it subjects the farmer to abject poverty on account of the regular trampling on the farm produce or crops of this farmer, which of course has been the center of the clashes between these two very important sectors of our economy. Here in Delta, we are very determined to regulate it, not for the purpose of only banning grazing in open areas, but for the purpose of promoting healthy living between the owners of the livestock, and of course, those of us who are into either consumption, marketing, breeding, or rearing. And when that is done, we are very much convinced that it will help our economy both in Delta and indeed that of the entire country.
Okay, thank you so much, Commissioner. Baba Ngalzerma, you said something while you were speaking. You said the pastoralists, this is all they know all their life. Yes. But some others will argue with you that it's a business. And why can't business people that own this cattle provide land necessary to rear this cattle? Why encroaching on other people's land? Because it's a business in the end. And people own this cattle. I'm not sure cattle fall out. Cattle just come from the skies like that. They've got a name tag. Somebody gets the profit when they are sold. So why must they use our commonwealth?
Well, let's make certain things clear.
Hang on. I'm talking to Baba Ngalzerma. But you can answer afterwards, please, Commissioner. Thank you.
Can I continue?
Yes.
I have heard all what the commissioner has said. It's like we're all moving in the same pace. He has given an example of Texas. Did Texas attain to the position where it is today through just 1, 2, 3 years? They went through the same thing we are going through today. The first maybe 100 years when they have the gypsies going around as nomads, having conflicts with farmers. Let him go to the history of the gypsies and the herders in America. They went through the same thing that we are going through today. But through processes, they came to where they are today. All that we are saying is let there be a process that can begin to settle these people, because it's not their own fault. All they know is what they are doing. They are primitive in their thinking. They have not gone to the school. They are practicing what they have inherited from their forefathers, because there was no attempt by any administration or anybody to try to transform them into the modernized system of animal husbandry. So let this thing come as a process. We are not opposed to any form of settlement. Talk less of the south, even in the northern part of the country where the pastoralists belong. In the next 10, 20 years, it will be impossible for them to move from one local government to the other, because the population will continue to grow, both of the human beings and the animals. It will continue to grow against a land that doesn't increase 1 inch. So there has to be a process. A process has to start from now.
Okay, thank you so much.
You can attain the settlement of these pastoralists after maybe a long period of time. So we are never opposed to any form of settlement.
Okay, thank you so much. Really
what we are saying is...
hello, sir. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Sorry I had to cut because of time. Then we move to the commissioner. Commissioner, he's saying that they are not against the process, but they want you guys to give them time to settle things and educate them properly on this process. What's your take on that, Commissioner?
Well, I can bet you that that is not what they are waiting for. They just want us to continue along the same line of having these clashes. Like I said earlier, I don't blame any one of them. The president has not provided leadership in that direction. If the president is able to promote a policy, the states don't even need to begin to pass individual laws. We are saying we want one Nigeria. This idea of getting each state to now begin to regulate the process of animal husbandry differently and having distinct laws is a way of also further dividing us. The federal government should have been able to properly regulate this. Then he talked about the issue of the government coming. Yes, I agree, the government can come in. Here in Delta, what we are saying is that we are proposing at least about 5 hectares of, about 5,000 hectares of land. Some of them are asking for as much as 30. We said, no, within these hectares, you cannot go and establish your ranch in every local government. Not that you are going to have these hectares and still continue to graze in open areas. And so if the presidency comes out with a policy and convince through sensitization our brothers and sisters who are also providing this as part of our economy, services in this sector, we would have been able to have a more peaceful process of transiting from nomadism to a much more sedentary approach, where you have these cattle being kept in one place, otherwise known as ranch. The fact is that anybody telling you that they are waiting for a long time is like those who kicked out the bill to transmit election result electronically on the guys that they don't have internet services in their community. It's still how we will continue to move in one circle. This tokenism cannot help us. Let us know that for us to make progress, we just have limited time on earth. What are we leaving behind by the time we leave for our brothers, our sisters, our children? Who will be leaving behind? This procrastination is not only the thief of time, but is the destruction of our country. And we have gone through this route across several sectors of our country. Let's plead with the Mr. President to indeed provide leadership, because when he does that and resume duty in this direction, we will have our brothers and sisters, particularly those members of Mietiala, agree that there is a need to make progress.
Honorable Commissioner, yes, your point is clear, but before we go, Baba Ngalzerma, I would like to ask you a question. Is there a middle course in all of this that Magban is proposing?
The middle course here in Delta.
No, I wanted Baba Ngalzerma to answer that. Hello?
Yeah, let me get the question clearly.
No, is there a middle course that Magban is proposing? Because it looks like the southern governors are determined to put the law in place, and Magban is saying, give us more time, we need to make our input. Is there a middle course that Magban is proposing?
You see, let's take the example of Ondo now. The law is in place. So we just have to wait and see how the law is going to affect our members. But as it is now, Ondo State is calm, everybody is calm, our members are calm, nobody has told them anything and nobody is telling them anything. So we wait and see how this law is going to be implemented. But I would like to draw the attention of Ondo to Benue, where a law has been put in place. Go and appraise the Benue law. Has it succeeded in bringing peace to Benue? It has never succeeded in bringing peace to Benue. Rather, it has further aggravated the situation to becoming worse day in, day out. So we are never opposed to laws that can bring harmony. And laws are supposed to bring understanding and harmony among communities. Once it is done in that way, it's good. At least our members can also have a rest of mind, because today, who is at the recipient of all this crisis? Well, but the pastoralists, I believe. But I understood the Honorable Commissioner. I'm in the same line with the Honorable Commissioner, calling on the federal government to come up with something common that can be workable to both farmers and pastoralists in the country. Let there be understanding among the southern and the northern governors. Let them put their heads together. Let them come up with something that can work for both farmers and herders for peaceful coexistence, at least. And the federal government, let the federal government be up and doing in trying to solve this problem, because this problem was allowed to linger for so long. From farmer-herder conflict, it degenerated to cattle rustling, large-scale cattle rustling, kidnapping, up to banditry that we are witnessing today. So let there be something that can work for both south and the north. Let there be something put in place that can work for both farmers and herders in the country for them to coexist peacefully. Let's try to find that missing communication link between them that has existed peacefully and brought a lot of brotherhood among them that is missing today. That today when they see each other, they look at each other as enemies. Let's go back to the drawing board. Let's see what are the causes of these things. We have generated so many literature on this, but what is the government doing about all this literature that has been generated through so many dialogues, discussion, and what have you? Up till now that I speak to you, if not recently, most of those initiatives that were being put forward by governments are those that are addressing the effects of the crisis. Up till now, the root causes of the crisis are not squarely addressed. So let's begin to address what are those root causes. How can we come over them? How can we bring understanding between the farmers and the herders across the country that has today generated in bringing disunity among our leaders? The southern governors going to one side, coming up with something, and while the northern governors also coming to us. Well, all these things are not necessary. We are all leaders. We can sit together. We can come up with something that can work for these two groups. And these two groups are created to coexist together. It's just like the relationship of tongue and teeth. There's nothing you can do, but let there be a solution that can raise this matter to rest.
So
Land doesn't increase.
The population
will continue to increase of both animals and human beings.
May I come in here? Let's be specific, Baba Ngalzerma. Can you give us those specifics that address the root causes, in your opinion? What are the measures that you would like to see in, for example, Delta State's bill? And I also have a question for you, Mr. Aniagwu. Delta State missed the deadline of September 1st. Why? And what are the provisions of the bill? What can we expect? So I'll start with you, Baba Ngalzerma.
You see, from what I heard from the Honorable Commissioner, that Delta State has already earmarked a certain area for the pastoralists to begin to acquire their own ranch. At least an immediate solution has been made for them, and a process has been put in place in Delta for them to, whoever is interested in coming up with any form of settlement can now come up with any form of settlement in Delta State for him to coexist peacefully without him being disturbed or he becoming a problem to farmers. This is okay. This is good. Whoever is interested among our members to venture into that, at least a level ground has been provided for them to continue their trade in the most peaceful way. Who is not interested, then he has the liberty to maybe have an alternative. But what Delta is doing is what we are calling on most of those states that wanted to introduce anti-open grazing laws, to take the flights of those pastoralists who are living there into consideration. Let me give you an example of Ekiti. When Payoshe was the governor, we had similar problems. We went to mitigate among the conflict between farmers and herders in Ekiti. Then we came up with certain proposals that worked for us during the time of Payoshe. The Payoshe said he has no grazing reserve in Ekiti State, but he's committing his game reserve for the pastoralists to stay in the game reserve after registering with their respective local governments. After paying a particular amount of money, let them register, let the local government know of their existence in that particular game reserve located in that local government. So all the pastoralists went to stay in the game reserves. So there was no farm destruction. Again, there was no conflict. Again, a committee was set up in all the local governments across Ekiti State, involving the pastoralists, youth, the natives, youth, security agencies, traditional rulers, and what have you, in each and every local government to mitigate conflicts when they arise. So these are the things we should be doing for now before attending to the final system of settlement. Coming to the Grazing Reserve review intended by the federal government, this is a very good decision and in the right direction. It's high time, because if you want to settle the pastoralists in the north, where are you going to settle them? Are you going to settle them in the air? They need a land that can be settled. These areas called grazing reserves are areas designated by law for grazing. They have laws, and these laws are promulgated by those state governments who has responsibility over land. Land belongs to the state governors. It's under the custody and the care of every state government. So these grazing reserves were gazetted by those state governments. They are there. There are 415 of them. Out of this number, about half was gazetted. The other half is not gazetted. And even those that are gazetted have been encroached by farmers. So let's review it. Let's see how we can take over where it is possible for us to take over. Where it has become an overriding public interest, more farmers are there. You don't need to dislocate them, because they have already taken farmlands, and farming is also very important. The herder also needs food to eat. He is also a farmer while practicing as a herder. So where it is encroached, let's find some other new places where we can regazette and give them more land as well. So
thank you for that.
So if you want to settle them, where are you going to settle them? So it's a process of settlement that the federal government has called for the review of those grazing reserves, so that they can be taken over as reserves.
Right. Thank you for that, Mr. Aniagwu. I'll take your response to my question, please.
Well, thank you very much. You raised a number of issues, and then you asked why we didn't meet the deadline. You recall that at the time the deadline was given, the Delta State government, they have an ESCO, because the ESCO was dissolved in May, and then we had a partial reconstitution in July, and then, of course, a full reconstitution of the ESCO in August. And so, of course, you know, it's the executive that will implement this law. We needed to also have our own input, particularly the Office of the Attorney General, for us to be able to put a law that is not only just to ban, but to be able to stand the test of time and regulate a relationship that will exist between our brothers who are into this form of animal husbandry and those of us who are their customers. We are not just saying, let us just ask people not to bring their cattle. We are saying, even if you are bringing it, we must be able to properly regulate. And so we had a public hearing that involved the Mietiala and a whole number of persons, for us to look at how we can effectively regulate it. Not that we pass the law for just today. We are making a law that will also stand the test of time. And at that time, too, the House of Assembly had already before now made arrangement for a training program, which they were to undertake last year, but because of the COVID, they couldn't. All those things came in to cause that delay. But so far, the bill have passed second reading. They have concluded the activities at the committee level, at the public hearing stage. It is now at the committee stage where it will now be returned. We are assuring you that in this September, unfailingly, that bill will become a law by the grace of God, because they are also dotting the I's and crossing the T's. Now, on a very important issue that we needed to look at, why I said that the president need to provide leadership. What the federal government seems to be doing is to say, okay, go and pass your law. We will ask the police, which is a federal police, not to implement. And you know that is going to create some form of crisis. Because the Constitution makes it that once a law is passed by the State Assembly, it is incumbent on the Nigerian police to implement such laws, until even if it's a bad law, until set aside by a law court or a court of competent jurisdiction. But what we are seeing in some of the states that have immediately signed this law is that the police tend to have been asked to say, please stay aloof and let us see how they will implement it. And when that happens, you are going to cause a crisis that is even worse than where we are moving from. And that is why it's very important that the president stand up and realize that this is not a question of we versus them. It's a question of us having a state and a country that function and function optimally. So that at the end of the day, the cattle breeders are able to have value for their money, even as our farmers are able to have peace in their farm, and then those of us who are neither farmers or cattle breeders are able to enjoy the protein without having to look behind our back that somebody who is about to cut us down because we are cutting their part. You asked a question to my brother, and I'm sure that by the grace of God, from the views he expressed, he quite agree that there is a need for us to find a common ground. If you take, for instance, airlines are owned by private individuals, but the government tries as much as possible to come in by providing the airport where they will land, and then government provide regulation. So here in Delta, we believe that we cannot just say go and form a ranch, so that somebody will not wake up and then go and put a ranch in front of at the gate of government house or at the gate of somebody else's farm because he believes that he has been able to buy a land from that place. We need a regulation that will be able to say, okay, this is the area where you can have a ranch, because of the peculiarities of what running a ranch entails. And in addition to what I mentioned earlier, co-location of facilities. Because if you have a ranch in point A, another ranch in point B, and they are scattered, there are certain advantages you can get up, just like location and localization of industries, that you can derive when about 7, 8 ranches owned by Nigerians. They don't necessarily have to be Fulanese. As I'm talking to you, I'm just waiting for the law to be passed in Delta. I don't even mind approaching a bank. I'm interested in also having a ranch because I love animal husbandry. So that at the end of the day, you too can take advantage of the multi-billion dollar that also moves around that particular sector. It will help us, but let the federal government have a proper buy-in and regulate everybody so that it becomes a law of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, a policy of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and let the federal government not stop keeping quiet and allowing us to be much more divided. Because the more these laws become that of just the state, the more we are getting divided, because the concept will be different, the approach will be different, the transportation process will be different. If a man is coming from Kano and is coming to Delta, he's going to pass through not less than 5 different states. And so we need a proper regulation.
All right, Commissioner, thank you so much. I'd like to come to Baba Ngalzerma and come back to you, Commissioner. Baba Ngalzerma, please explain to me, you said that the law in Benue was passed, but has led to conflict. What's your take on that? And is it a good thing that the law was passed and both parties can't abide by that law? And you also said about grazing routes. Well, and that's where I would like to come to the Commissioner. Commissioner, Baba Ngalzerma now is saying grazing routes, but you are saying there are laws to ban open grazing. I mean, explain that area for me. I don't get it. Why are we talking about grazing route again? If you say before the end of the month, we'll pass laws in place, you know, to give people, what's it called now, ranches. So Baba Ngalzerma, explain that line you made about Benue for me.
You see, what I said about Benue was, a law has been promulgated in Benue. It has been implemented. But go and appraise it today. Has he succeeded in addressing the issue? No, it has not, because even after the promulgation of this law, we have the fear that the law was not made in a way that it can solve the problem. We believe that that law was made in order to chase away all the pastoralists in Benue, because the law says, the title of the law is Open Grazing Prohibition and Ranching Establishment Law. So 2 things are involved there. Banning of open grazing and establishment of a ranch. So by mere definition, you know, one must come after the other. The ranches must be established before you implement the ban. But what actually took place in Benue was the implementation of the ban even before the establishment of the ranches. So the pastoralists were chased away, their cows taken away from them. The livestock guards that were established by the government will arrest cows. They will take it to government for breach of the law. Government will fine them, maybe 800,000, 1 million naira. And apart from paying the fine of the government, the livestock guard will also charge money, more than what the government charges. They charge 2, 3 million from a pastoralist, and the pastoralist has to pay to remove his cows from dying.
Baba, we need to go because of time.
Even after paying, from the 100 cows that were taken away from him, maybe 50 will be returned to him.
Okay, Baba, we need to go because of time, because I need to take the commissioner real quickly. We're talking about, grazing routes now, and you're talking about a law. Explain that area for me in less than a minute. Commissioner, we need to go. Time is not our friend, please.
You know the most unfortunate thing about this grazing route is that it's even coming from the president. How can you be talking of a gazette that was put in place in the 60s, when between 1960 and now we have had several constitutional amendments, and the Constitution provides very, very clearly through the Land Use Act on how we can manage our land, and then vest the power to regulate the use of land in the hands of the governors. So if you are talking about grazing route, at a time where our population is less than 60 million, and then now that we are over 200 million, not even only the issue of the population, but the ground norm, which is far, far superior than that gazette, gives the governors the powers. In any case, there are roads that have been constructed across these routes that was gazetted. So now let us go and close those roads and then plant grasses so that the cattle can go there and begin to graze. Some persons have built houses along these routes that the president is talking about. Let us also go and destroy the houses and then render them homeless. We need to be able to have a country that functions properly. What is important is that we need to embrace ranching. Abuja, our federal capital today, was not a capital as at the time even that gazette was put in place. A whole lot of structures, including the villa, possibly may even belong to one of those grazing routes that the president is talking about. Do we now dismantle every facet of governance because we now want to hold on to certain primordial values? The president needs to help us. It's not a problem of anybody. If the law in Benue did not function properly, it is not because the law was not properly passed. It's because a lot of persons are looking at the body language of the president, and the president need to provide leadership for every part of this country, irrespective of your religion, your tribe, your ethnic group, or whoever, whatever position that you have.
Well, we've run out of time. Thank you very much, Charles Aniagwu. Thank you very much, Baba Ngalzerma. I'm sure, if we wanted to continue for another 1 hour, both of you came ready for every question. But thank you very much. We'll keep the conversation going. It's time.